Welcome back, Remi. How's it going?
Hello, hello. Good, good. How are you?
Doing good. We've been chatting a bit before we started recording, but I've been really interested in talking with you again. The episode I did with you is like the most popular I have um, on my podcast. People seem to like
Nice.
hearing you speak. Interesting topics. So, what have you been up to lately?
Yeah, speculating a bit on the Solana shitcoins. I'm honestly tired, but it's still worth it to be in the trenches, as they say. But also exploring the Ton ecosystem and just having fun, and also launched my own shitcoin, which I tried to do like a fair launch. Airdropped most of the tokens to significant holders on the Ton network, and just seeing where it goes.
Yeah, so you sent me some of that, and I ended up losing it. I gave you the wrong address. Uh, coming from the Ethereum and Solana, like now Bitcoin space, like there's so much, complicated actions that you have to take to create a wallet and maintain it. On the Ton network, it seems pretty simple, especially through the Telegram app. So I didn't really understand the differences between different types of tokens. But what I wanted to like get to is why did you choose to spend your energy on that network specifically as opposed to something else?
Yeah, like honestly, it's the network effect of like I think it's what 800 million monthly active users or something ridiculous like this. Not sure about the numbers about Telegram right now. Monthly active users, Telegram. I think it's 800 million. 900 million monthly active users, which is quite incredible. I think that's more than like any chain currently has. I'm quite confident saying that. I'm not sure on the numbers, but so Telegram has one thing that other networks don't, and that's like real adoption, real users. And if they only just take in a fragment or a fraction of like the monthly active users and get them to use the Ton chain, I think it could be like one of the biggest blockchains or most adopted. And currently, they just released a thing where if you own a channel, you can get 50% of the revenue paid out in Ton coins. So they're doing revenue share, and yeah, it's just interesting. There's like we're all in Telegram. Like I don't know about you, but I'm definitely a Telegram addict, and most of the crypto space feels seems to be there. So to me, it seems clear that like you want to buy a dog coin on Ton before the cycle starts. At least that's my feeling.
So in from what I'm seeing here, I actually did some numbers. The monthly active users or the daily active user, yeah, monthly active users on Ethereum is so 540 times 10, 5 million, 15 million. So it's 15 million monthly active users on the Ethereum network. Comparing that to Telegram, that's 800. If they get 10% of people, that's 80 million. So they can easily, you know, get 4 or 5 times the amount of exposure. So one thing I don't know how they're gonna accomplish is how to make it super simple for people. Like this is my personal user experience is like, okay, I want to get that. I want to get Leica, and you send me some Leica, and I just give you an address that I think should work, right? But it doesn't because I have to have the decentralized version of that, not the, custodial version, which kind of sucks. But also, I've had this experience on Ethereum like 100 times. It's just been so long that I don't think it matters anymore. What are you excited about there? Like, besides the numbers of people, are there any cool projects?
Well, currently it's just honestly it's just the potential adoption, I think. So I'm not really speculating on any solid, fundamentally solid projects there. It's just shitcoins, which I honestly also think is kind of the theme of this cycle, so that's fine. But for me, it's mostly just the adoption. I think that people already have this wallet baked into their smartphones mostly. Like almost everyone has this at wallet in their Telegram. And I think except for American users, they're geo-blocked. But as soon as people start getting interested and curious, they already have this wallet, right? So like I can send my mom 1 ton without any issue. She doesn't even have to activate anything. Whereas if I want to send her ETH, she has to download a wallet and like, write down 12 words, which are very important, and don't lose them because you'll lose everything. And then like, you just lost 50% of people who want to try out this new thing. So I think just having it built into Telegram is interesting. And Like it has the potential, in my opinion, to become kind of the decentralized crypto WeChat, where it can be this super app where like you can access all these mini apps, all these like apps that pop up inside of Telegram, and you can just directly access all your DeFi stuff from there instead of going to different websites and stuff. And like the handles, the addresses are also NFTs, right? So you can have NFT addresses, which are like ats, and you can have NFT numbers. So it's just super cool and useful. It's very interesting, and it's completely, in my estimation, completely under the radar. Like my shitcoin friends that usually cycle through chains, I've been telling them to like get on Telegram's ton, and they're just not doing it. So it's very amusing because we're all on the app anyways, right? So I'd expect it to be very smooth, but yeah.
I think that a lot of the people that are already been onboarded onto crypto are probably having a similar experience to me, where they're used to this super technical process of, like you said, write down these words, create these wallets, manage the wallets, manage your browser, and going on to something more basic. Like I didn't have a phone wallet until like this month, I think. Like I installed Phantom on my phone, and the reason for that is like I'm super paranoid about security and what happens if somebody takes my phone uh, or I install something stupid and lose all my money. So a lot of people are going to fall to that. Like they're gonna be stuck in their old ways. So it's about getting new people in more than onboarding the already onboarded onto Ton. I do see the potential in it though. I think there's another difference here that I'm noticing is that I started using Telegram more in the last 3 months when this shitcoin cycle started, and when people were giving advice and telling me what to buy and here's a pre-launch and here's this. But I'm a build, so I do a lot of coding and a lot of project management, and I do all of that on Discord. So for the last 5 years, Discord has been my daily driver in terms of social media or communication app. So I think there's a separate class or category of people that is emerging on Discord versus Telegram, and the ones that have money are probably doing this like more work oriented stuff rather than the gambling side of things or the investing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure about like the where the capital is distributed though. Like the gamblers I know are gambling quite hard, so
So you said you're also buying stuff on Solana. So how's that journey been going for you?
yeah, it's super fun really. Like just got the Solana phone a while back, and it's been not to talk about Ton again, but like it makes much more sense to have like a Ton phone where like you have the NFT numbers and like the network built in, but whatever. The Solana phone has been really fun just to like quickly access stuff with the Phantom wallet, and like it's a great ecosystem to just speculate and gamble. Though I still feel like it's, in my opinion, unacceptable that the network can halt. But then again, like from just a price perspective, if Solana can go offline and the price doesn't collapse to zero, then Solana is so fucking bullish because it'll just like there's nothing that can stop this network now, right? Because even if the network halts, it's just like yeah, that's socially acceptable. So I'm actually really bullish Solana. I don't own any except for like gambling, but yeah, it's been really fun. And I also met the guys who created Pump.fun, and they actually asked me to like do an angel round with them, but at the time I already had 3 rounds that I did, so I thought it wasn't responsible to do so. But looking back, I definitely should have done it. I thought it was brilliant from the moment I saw it. So yeah, it's just really fun to see people. But it seems like the main use case of Solana right now is just like fast shitcoining rotations. I'm sure there's a lot of like interesting fundamental stuff going on as well, but that seems to be the main use case currently.
I found it to be the best user experience that I've had. Like MetaMask sucks and it's very complicated. And I think like with Ethereum, they had this idea of like, okay, we can launch layer twos and alt layer ones, and they're all compatible with each other, but you also have to manage all of them. I don't think this is at all an acceptable thing for my
No, it's
mother.
a pain in the ass. It's such a horrible user experience. Like you want to deploy shitcoin, where do you go? You have options of like 20 layer twos now, or you just go to Solana. So it just makes sense. Like having one place you go to is just much more intuitive. So yeah,
There's another issue around taxes. I think that, this whole bridging stuff, I don't know if I don't think it's an issue in Europe, but as an American citizen, I have to pay taxes there and I have to report, what I'm making. And one of the biggest problems is the bridge, right? So if I'm bridging funds from Gnosis Chain, which is not accepted on any of the centralized exchanges, to say mainnet or Polygon, one, I have to pay the bridge fees, the actual gas fees, and I need to report that as a taxable event, as well as actually withdrawing it to a centralized exchange. That's another taxable event, and then converting it to fiat. So by the time my money is supposed to leave, I've already gone through 4 or 5 taxable events. And I think it is a completely unviable option for people trying to do, this kind of, trading and messing around. So I really have been loving Solana. I lost a lot of money in it so far. I think I lost more than I've made, but also it's exhilarating. It is a casino. I think that's kind of what it's shaping up to be. I don't see any other use cases with Ethereum. Like I use the multi-sigs and I do the what's called Aave. But with Solana, it's just buy coin, sell coin, swap. I'm also staking some Sol, which has a good like 7% return. That's pretty much it.
yeah, I do have some friends that are also building some serious stuff. A friend of mine, Henry, is working on BonkBot, and I think Carlos. Oh my God, I forgot the name. Is working on this thing that is kind of similar to DeFi Saver, where you can like bundle together all the transactions and like shoot them off in one thing. You can like it's like a transaction builder, if that makes sense. So there's like cool stuff being built, and I'm sure there's going to be like a niche where, you know, it's acceptable that the network could halt for a few moments, or a day or two.
I,
But yeah,
I just don't hold Solana up to that standard where like the same as Ethereum or Bitcoin where it can't go down or it's a problem. I don't think it's a lot more to me like an online bank as opposed to a blockchain service in the way that it works. And I think that, if they focus on making it easy to use as much as possible, it still needs to get better. I think it's going to be a great solution for like sending money to your friends and family. I think Ton probably will do that way better though,
yeah,
given that it's, like you said, baked into the phone.
yeah.
Um,
Well, also like I see Solana as kind of this economic zone where you go, you do your trades, you do your stuff, you do your business, and then you withdraw and you send it either back to ETH or BTC again, right? That's kind of how I've been seeing it in my mind. Same with the layer twos. You don't really want to like stick around and leave your capital there. I think that like Blast had a rollback, I believe. I just saw the headline. I didn't actually read the article, but but yeah, it feels like you don't really want to keep any significant amounts on L2s or Solana, in my opinion.
with Matic, so the Polygon network, their token, I think it's called Matic. So the SEC said that it's a security, and ever since then it's like crashed a third of its price, and I think that's like super endangering for the whole chain, right? There's a lot of people that use Polygon. I think it was like the first L1 that people started using. It has a lot of projects on it, and now it's just this dying dinosaur where there's not much liquidity. Like if you think about meme coins, really the two places that I'm seeing them is like mainnet and base, and that's it. Everything else is just there that like 100 million market cap max, and Optimism doesn't really have any dog coins or so they're shaping out to be these like interesting little zones. I think Optimism chose to be the public good chain. Are you familiar with Public Goods Network?
Yeah, I heard of this. Yeah,
So Gitcoin started their own network and now they're shutting it down. It didn't work out well for them. Well, I'm assuming, I'm not sure, but the idea though is Optimism just decided like, okay, there's definitely a gap to fill here, and we're gonna be the ones to fill it. And now they've been giving, I think they gave out like $1 billion last year, which is a lot of money. Um, it's interesting. I'm going, but this is what I mean. You can't really you can't teach an old person how to use all of this stuff and what all of this means. Yeah, that are not initiated. Um, Yesterday, when I reached out to you, I wanted to talk a bit about community and culture and NFTs. We had a conversation about Milady and that ecosystem a while back, and I definitely felt like an outsider. I was more so watching it from the sidelines, trying to understand what this is. I have a much better idea. But before I ask any specific questions, how's that journey been going for you?
Yeah, it's super fun. It's like I see it as kind of the antidote to let's say toxic modern culture, where it can be toxic in itself, of course, as well. But it's kind of like this reaction to a lot of the politically correct trends. And I believe that that's actually like a significant risk to keeping these networks neutral. So the reason I really like this stuff is because it's like it's kind of like the antibodies, if it makes sense. The cultural antibodies. That's how I would call the whole Milady thing.
I did a lot of research. I want to try to go through the controversy first and then talk a bit about what I actually do like because I'm definitely more on the side of I like this than I don't. But as somebody, like again, with responsibilities, I have a family, I have people that I work with. Recently, I had been posting a lot about meme coins, and that probably hit my reputation a bit in some way. So, people see that are working with me on a professional level, like they see a more degen side of me. It's not necessarily attractive as this guy is just doing all this stupid shit on Solana and then actually building technology. It's a bit of a contradiction. And the same happens with like these NFTs where I'm really into the community and what they're doing. And I think I see the meme of it. It's not, I don't think it's serious. I've spoke to a lot of Maladies in real life that are really good people. And, but online, when people are looking at these accounts, they're seeing them, talking about like racist stuff or talking about, weird things that aren't necessarily said in public. And people are not comfortable with that, right? Like my wife she follows me on Twitter and she sees all of the things that I'm retweeting and following. And a lot of the Remilios, they're posting things about like Hitler and uh, I don't know, just stuff like that. And it's for her, it's repulsive. It's like, oh, I don't want to see you associated with this stuff. It could be damaging to your long-term reputation. Does that make sense? Like, have you dealt with this duality here? I know you made an alt on Twitter, so you're not like sharing your real info there.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of my solution where like I still don't mind associating with the whole Milady space because ultimately, as I said, I do see it as kind of a counterculture or antibodies. Definitely some people go too far, but that's just the nature of the thing. And that's also like I think the duality of having like radical freedom of speech. If you accept kind of the radical freedom, then you get both sides. So sometimes things are said that are probably repulsive or definitely repulsive, but sometimes things are said that need to be said, right? So, and I ultimately believe that the good of being able to say things outweighs the negative of saying like nasty stuff, let's say.
There's
And
no
it's
freedom of
better.
speech
Mhm.
unless you're hearing things you don't like. I heard
Yeah,
that
definitely.
somewhere, and I agree
I
with it. Yeah.
definitely agree. 100%. Yeah.
So about Charlotte Fang during my research, because I got increasingly interested in this, the more accounts that I followed and the more I saw sort of what these people are doing for each other. I think there is like this whole support group side of the culture. These people seem to help each other. These accounts seem to blow up very quickly. So if you have one of the profile pictures, people are going to start following you, and you're going to get more popular. So there's like a benefit that is immediately available to people who enter into this culture and this community. But I read a lot of blog posts about Charlotte Fang, which I believe is the founder or the artist behind the NFTs. I'm not sure which. And there's a lot of things about like accelerationalism and suicide cults on 4chan and anorexia, pro anorexia movements. How have you experienced that? What are your thoughts on what's happening there?
Honestly, I don't really have any. Like I saw this stuff come by, and like often I've been asked, especially when in public in real life, I kind of associated with this. Um, like the way I see it is kind of like earlier stuff that was trying to just generate shock value, like, and you can do that through, you know, hard stuff, and that like generates attention. And like when I was younger, I also spent some time on 4chan, which I think you shouldn't talk about. But there's this like, curiosity killed the cat. There's like this appeal to like the vileness. So I think that plays part. Um, but I don't see any of that right now. Like in the culture, I don't really see in any serious way like associations with these kinds of things.
So, are you familiar with this idea that 4chan is the beginning of this like meme life cycle? So, a lot of like the most popular memes, Rickroll, and there's a whole bunch of them. I'm not going to name all of them. They kind of they propagate in 4chan, and then they move down the line until they hit something like Facebook, which is the end of the meme life cycle. It's true though. It's about like going back to this idea of freedom of speech, like Facebook, out of all of the platforms, probably has the least amount of freedom of speech. They're very well known for censoring things that they are not interested in seeing on their platform. There's a lot of moderation happening, at least in English. But as you move down that line, where is this originating from? You end up in Twitter, which is somewhere in the middle. Like they're a lot more tolerant, but still they have to comply to regulations and legality. And also most people there are not actually anonymous. And you end up with 4chan, which is this like generative machine that pumps out a lot of things that we take into our culture 5 years down the line. But nobody's allowed to really talk about, this thing existing or them having any part of it. Um, I recently went back on to see, what's happening, and 99% of it is a shit show and horrible, but there is sometimes something there that isn't necessarily just bad on the surface. There's some depth to it, or there's like some mimology that's not expressed elsewhere. Have you ever revisited it? What do you think about like its place in social media?
I mean, last cycle I spent a lot of time there for like on slash biz. There's a lot of actually interesting opportunities last cycle. I don't know if that's still the case, but I used to spend a lot of time there just like searching for shitcoins and stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. I think it definitely like played a part in my upbringing, which is maybe not necessarily a good thing. But yeah, I do like it ultimately. I think that like being able to like it's usually from the outside it's seen as like this vile and like offensive place, but then actually to judge someone based on an ID and purely on the content of what they're saying is actually like the most neutral thing you can do, right? Like you're literally judging someone purely on the content of what they're saying, and that's quite beautiful. I think that's very interesting.
I think from what I see that like the NFT movement is really tailored towards bringing this to regular social media platforms. The idea that like who you are as a person in your day to day is not necessarily connected with the ideas that you're trying to represent or work through. Like if somebody that is a
Yeah, it's like an
yeah,
MMORPG.
exactly. So you're bringing that onto other social media platforms where in the past, like that wasn't necessarily allowed or permitted. So now you can say all of those things by having a profile picture. Like I can assume what a Bored Ape holder believes in, and pretty consistently, and like they're
Not securing their seed phrase.
no, like you can tell usually the ethnicity, the demographic, the age, the career path, the type of person, where they live, all through just that profile picture pretty consistently. So let's talk a bit about culture and community. Um, I know you have a lot of ideas there. I'll kind of let you riff without asking any specific questions. Let me know if that works for you.
Yeah, if you have any more specific questions, then I think that would be great.
All right. Well, how do you think culture is being shaped right now? What is the predominant Web3 culture? Who are the biggest players that you're seeing? Let's start there.
Yeah, so like I think the Milady stuff is definitely interesting. There's like I think there's two sides to this in our little crypto bubble at least. You have like the more Western progressive kind of woke type people that are coming in with like just the natural growth of this industry. And then I think that like the whole Milady space is kind of like the antidote to this, where I believe that like the whole like a lot of the woke stuff is kind of I see it as radically left. So it's for like redistribution of assets, taxation, and all this kind of stuff. And I see that as kind of like a risk for the neutrality of these platforms, right? So like if Ethereum lets itself be compromised by these values, then I believe it could like destroy the neutrality of the network. And that's, in my opinion, at least key of like what's going on here is like having neutral networks where, people can do stuff which you don't necessarily agree with. So yeah, that's just some thoughts.
Does that go down to like the solar punk, lunar punk divide that people like to role play in? The A lot of people that I see are on the public good side. They are doing public good, right? They're shaping a lot of the important things that need to happen to allow products and ideas to flourish in the space, but they also necessitate this bend towards like PC progressive culture because at the end of the day, that's kind of that's the type of person who wants to do public good. And then you have a bunch of these people that are working on freedom, privacy technology. They're building encryption software. Like let's say a
I'm
great
thinking of
example
the
of
dark
this.
fi people.
DarkFi. Like let's say Tornado Cash is a great example of
Hmm.
this, where a lot of the industry they don't necessarily hate them, but they also don't necessarily like them. They view them as a risk towards blockchain achieving mass adoption. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But I think we kind of need both. Like we need like the naive optimism of like the solar punks, which want to do like the kumbaya open, we're all gonna be in public and it's gonna be great. But then you also need like the paranoid schizo lunar punk, which, thinks that the government is watching them and like yeah, so you kind of need like a fusion of both. I think someone made like a middle ground of those two. But I think like the key is in having both like the optimist and the pessimist, where the pessimist will kind of warn you that if you go into like a fully transparent financial system, you don't just have the state that's watching you, you have everyone watching everyone, and that sounds like a fucking nightmare. And then if you completely give power to like the schizo, then they just go bananas, right? They just go haywire. So I think the balance of the two energies is kind of key. um, but then also just like the civil disobedience of like just using the thing and just disagreeing and just like standing your ground. I think like I really like that about like Henry David Thoreau, who talks about civil disobedience and just like saying no, right? Like just doing the thing. And like if you think you're doing nothing wrong, then just do the thing. Like not to talk about like we just touched on some of the vile stuff in the Milady space, but like it's not the people that just followed orders that sent people into concentration camps. It's I mean that's what like it's the people that just follow orders and don't think for themselves, right? So it's actually key to think for yourself and not to follow orders. And if you think like using a privacy protocol is your right, then you should absolutely do so and just disobey whatever power that be is telling you that that's wrong, right? I think that's key.
There's a few things to pick apart here. Recently, yeah, I'll tell this story here and I'll link to the article. So, this group of people reached out to me on Forecaster. It was like this guy. He is saying that he has a job offer and that it's around like moderating a specific platform, and I know somebody who does that moderating in my personal life. So I referred them to this person, and I was watching because I know them in person. I was with them the whole day, and I was watching what they're saying, and what they were trying to get them to do is install software that is going to hijack their browser and take all of their money, right? But they've done it in such an organized way. Like there's so much effort put into this scam. They have websites that look super real. They have an application. They have businesses like registered businesses in the UK and the United States. They have social media accounts with like tens of thousands of followers that they bought to do this scam. And it's really organized, really well done. Once they said that, okay, you need to install this exe, I realized this is definitely a scam, and we did it. We did it on a virtual machine, and they couldn't get anything out of they couldn't get anything out of that wallet or the wallets that we had, and we set up like these little experiments to see what they can and what they can't do with their malware. The next day, I tweeted. Has anybody heard about X? I tagged the name of the protocol. Somebody commented under my post saying that he just got robbed of $200,000 by these people. And him and I started talking, and we just started going through every little detail of what's going on. Where did the money go? So they sent this money to splitter contracts, and they
North
started
Korea.
laundering it. It's Russia, actually. We found
really?
out we found out specifically who the people are. Well, the guy that got robbed, he did some insane research. He went and found like a logo in one of the people that's scamming their background picture, and then he used this reverse search software to find where this logo comes from, and it's under this rapper who is Russian. And then he started analyzing this guy's lyrics and found that he says that he does crypto scamming, and he found the license plate of the guy. Dude, it is a crazy blog post. I'm gonna put it in the description. It's one of the most fun things I've been a part of. Like honestly, the guy losing his money, not fun, but the process of finding these people is extremely interesting. So how did this all start? Why did they target me? Why did they target this guy? We have our ENS names in our profiles. So they found our ENS name. They found that we hold a specific amount of money, let's say over $10,000. And that means we're viable targets, right? Like it's not a waste of time to try to go for us because they'll be able to extract enough value to pay for their effort. And this goes to what you were just saying about like, solar punks, lunar punks, this build in the open, public transactions. It's great until it makes you a target, right? Like if you're broke and you only have like a few $100 here and there, it's great. It's awesome, right? Like, okay, we're all for the public. As soon as you start accumulating wealth, it puts a target on your back from the government, from malicious actors, and you end up in problems. And I started to realize, like, this is why people use banks, right? Banks suck.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I was about to say that. I didn't want to cut you off. Banks are great. They hold your assets. Yeah, it's good fun. Don't have to be paranoid. Yeah, I never wear any crypto logos on me. Like I'll wear like some really niche stuff, but I won't wear like a big ETH logo on my hoodie because I'm just paranoid, or people can follow you home, and like times are not always good for everyone. Like we're living in a little bubble where like we have cat coins going a bajillion X, but there's people out there that are struggling, and if you're like flaunting your shitcoin wealth, you're definitely putting a target on your back. So yeah, I never try and wear any crypto logos. I think sometimes I'm a bit annoying and a bit paranoid, where I like tell my girlfriend not to wear or not to like carry the Solana bag because I have all this like shitcoin merch. But then like I'd rather be like a bit schizo than
In a
put a
box.
target on my back. Yeah, in a box. Yeah.
Have you heard of the Canadian guy?
I don't think so.
So there's this Canadian guy who he made, I think he made like $300 million in crypto. This was last cycle. And he basically was targeted in Canada. Somebody kidnapped him, chopped him up, stole his like funds.
Oh, they found him in a suitcase, no?
They found him in a suitcase, yeah. And that's his story, right? Like you think you're hitting this lottery, like, oh man, I just made $100 million buying and selling memes. What people really kind of neglect is this could be any of us. This could be the solar punk people. This could be the people working on public good. They could buy some token. It could like 10,000x, and they're millionaires now. And now they literally do have a target on their back. And without that encryption, without that anonymizing software, they could be fucked. From the government perspective, have you ever heard of the concept of reverse punishment? Like the government, so you do something that's not legal or illegal at a certain time. Let's say in 2010 with Silk Road, building a site that other people can just post stuff on to sell is not illegal. Like you're not actually selling the stuff. It's just a new technology, so there's no laws around it. Then you move down a few years, you make a few $1 million, you have a target on your back, and you're going to experience retroactive punishment. So this guy, Dread Pirates Roberts, is in prison for the rest of his life. I mean, he did probably do some really bad things to upkeep what he was building, but it also comes out of necessity where you are building this thing, you're getting a lot of money, and now you actually have to protect yourself. So it is such a muddy waters there.
Yeah, I always like the argument of like speaking of Silk Road, like that it takes crime off the streets. Like you're not going to stop this thing anyways, right? So from what I heard, like most drug crimes happen during like the transactional trade, right? So if you can like abstract that away into the internet with privacy, reputation, and all this stuff, then it could ultimately reduce crime, right? So I always like that idea of like it like the the opinion of the legality of it like should ultimately it's creating less suffering, less pain. You're not going to stop people from using drugs anyways. So
Have you heard of there's a website, I think it was called Backdoor, where women can post ads for providing sexual services. It was also a thing on Craigslist in this section. I think it was like meats, like something like meats section, where you can put up an ad for providing some sexual service. And they had different laws around this in different states. And in the states where it was legal for Backdoor and Craigslist meets to operate, the rape statistics went down by like I think it was like 70-80%. Like there was 70-80% less rapes in the areas where this was a legal thing, versus areas where it wasn't. And this also applies to drugs, where right now I think the number one killer for people under the age of 50 in the United States is fentanyl. And if you have a nice little comment section that says, "Hey, this guy has great heroin," you're fine. There's social validation. People have purchased this product, tested it on themselves, and given out information. This is how our medical system works, right? These pharmaceutical companies, they pay people to experiment on them, and then they use those reviews to inform their decisions. So the fact that we're banning this and we're like cracking down on this on every level, like both the blockchain, the drugs, the sex, it is insane to me. It seems so contradictive.
yeah, no, definitely. Like the way I've been raised as well was kind of like you're free to do stuff, and then you kind of, because you're free to do it, you kind of don't. Whereas like if you forbid it completely, then it's very appealing and exciting, and then you go do the stuff you're not allowed to do. But I think that's definitely like a cultural issue of not. It's like the integration of the shadow in a way, right? We haven't integrated our shadow as a culture, where we try and push it under and ignore it, and then it actually gets worse. I like how in Holland, for example, instead of letting prostitution go into the underworld, well, it's not that I like it, I just think it's better. But instead of like it going into the underworld, we kind of let it, flourish in Amsterdam, for example. And then these things are regulated and controlled and like more humane, right? So ideally, it's like adults exchanging, money and services instead of being forced to do so and having their passports snatched and being in like some, underground system of God knows what.
I think I think the Netherlands is absolutely the best country in terms of how they've integrated, like you said, the shadow. I think the culture in the Netherlands is excellent in terms of how are they processing all of these issues. Obviously, there's a lot of problems that me as somebody that's an outsider I don't see when I go and visit there for a few weeks or a month, a year, as opposed to like my mother and brothers who live there full time and have been doing so for a very long time. They experience it differently. They say like they have issues with how when they go to Amsterdam they feel like they're sucked into this world of like vices, as opposed to you know walking the streets and just quote unquote not being affected by it. But I think it's better ultimately. To talk a bit about culture, if if you don't mind sharing, what do you think makes the Netherlands like? Do you like the culture in the Netherlands?
Honestly, not really. It's hard to put my finger on, but yeah, I think there's something wrong. Um, it's hard to put my finger on it, but my my intuition is that I'm half Czech, and Eastern Europe went through some horrors of, say, the more left-leaning ideas, as well as others, but like, um, and I feel like the Netherlands is just like really, really flirting with like the idea of redistribution of assets, of wealth, and taxation is going up. Um, like taxation will go up to 50% in certain brackets. The state wants to seize farmers' land because of the climate. Where I'm not saying that climate is not an issue, but like if you give the government permission to take things in the name of the climate, they will just make issues in the name of the climate and take your shit. So I'm actually like the reason I didn't buy a house last cycle is because I don't trust this government and like the culture as a whole. So I'd much rather go to a place like I really like Javier, this guy in Argentina. I think they learned from the pain of having a shit socialist system, and they kind of went through this process. And I think the Netherlands did not learn these pains yet. It's a country that used to be a superpower for a brief moment in time, and I feel like we're kind of in like the later stages of that cycle. We're definitely not like at a peak culturally and economically.
So the really interesting conversation. So my mother is a Dutch citizen, and the idea is every time I go there, like I said, as an outsider, I'm in Alkmaar, Heerhugowaard. Everything looks so perfect. It's so beautiful. Like every stone on the street, every blade of grass is cut and managed so perfectly, and to the eye, it's beautiful. It's a stunning thing. But then I talked to my mother who has a few businesses there, and she's taxed at like 55%. And I
You're a
consider
slave.
living there. Huh?
You're a slave. 50% more, you're a slave.
Dude,
Honestly, it's
uh,
slavery.
yeah,
It's insane.
5% is slavery, man. For me, like I can tolerate it. I understand that. I like if a country is managing the money properly, like if I pay 25% of my income and I can go to a doctor within like a day of me needing it. My son can go to a proper school where they're not being brainwashed. I go out and the streets are clean. There's no homelessness. Great, awesome. Because if I'm making like I'm really middle of the run in terms of how much I'm making. Like I'm in the bottom 90% of all humans. The top 10% of people are making like millions of dollars a year. I'm nowhere near that. So, but I still have like 25% of my income could keep one person alive for a year. Could keep one person housed or five people if we, have help from some other people who are paying into the system. I don't see that. Like, I don't see, I don't know that, like, again, in the Netherlands, it seems like they're paying it towards good things. In the United States, I go out, people are shooting heroin in the street or fentanyl. People are like looking like zombies. I can't go to a doctor without, paying so much money. Public transportation is just disgusting. It smells like piss, horrible. Um, and I feel like I'm not really paying it into anything properly used. So this is my tax rant. I'm sorry about that. What do you what do you think about? Also interesting that you talked about Javier from Argentina. How do you see that playing out in the next few years?
Yeah, I honestly like I think the frog is slowly boiling. Like there's a party that I like, which I'll not name, but he believes in like minimal government and less intervention, free markets, lower taxes, and all this stuff. And people see this and they're crying fascism. So, I mean, up is down, left is right. I think Orwell has like a nice line about something like freedom is slavery, all this stuff. It's just like it's this inversion to the point where I think it's also because I'm just half Dutch. I don't really feel the like any patriotic or nationalistic love for the country. I'm just kind of like shrugging it off and like, okay, well, fuck it. I'll just go elsewhere then, you know. But
Have you been to
yeah,
Eastern
definitely.
Europe?
I lived there. I lived on a farm in the Czech
I
Republic for I think 5 years. So that was like 1,000 cows, 30 dogs, 20 horses, 1,000 acres of land. Good stuff.
Here's my I've been living in Eastern Europe for like 2 years now. I fucking love it here. I love the way the people think. I love how the culture here works. You go outside and like things aren't perfect. You could sense that there's been a lot of poverty. That thing that I mentioned in the Netherlands, how everything is just so picturesque when you go outside, like it's so clean and organized. That's not a thing here. Maybe in some areas, like very specific, but it seems like their political stuff is pretty good. Like they have a decent military that isn't going and invading other countries. It's just there for defense. Their police system, like I've never interacted with them, even though I've engaged in what could be considered like a crime here, like smoking weed or like just doing crypto stuff. I've never really engaged at all with the police officer. They've never come up to me. They've never asked me any questions. I go outside. There's very, very little homelessness in Warsaw, at least. And it seems like, it's the best of both. There's a lot of freedom. I think this is the only country where there's no KYC crypto exchanges. So if you can go outside and there are ATMs and you can deposit and withdraw crypto and cash, and you don't have to give them an ID. They don't take a picture of you. You just give them like a code, and it gives you what you need, what you're asking for, up to a certain limit, but still. They don't have any crazy taxes for crypto. I've been loving it here. I've been loving the way their culture works. A lot of people complain though, like the one thing that they have here is like the women complain that they can't get what is it called, an abortion, for example.
Yeah,
They
but
can't.
then again, like their birth rates are not completely to shit, right?
Oh, I don't think people understand how much of a problem that is, like the birth rate thing.
Yeah, it's like everyone's talking about overpopulation, but like I don't know about the birth rates in Poland, but I have the feeling that it's quite good, where I believe that they're majority Catholic still. So,
Yeah, I'm just looking it up. So 1.33 births per woman, which is still not enough to replace the population
well, it's
long
better
term.
than Holland. Let's see the Holland.
Yeah, let's take a look at that.
0.2?
0.2. Yeah.
Wait, that can't be correct. Um, I heard Korea is absolutely horrific. I don't remember the stat exactly.
Korea
Oh, it's
birth rate is
1.6.
less than one per woman. Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's
okay, you
insane.
know
That's
why you
that's
guys have
insane.
such a high birth rate though? Your
Mm.
immigration system is super open.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's the Muslims that are having kids, and
Yeah.
like nothing against
I
them. It's
think
like often they feel more like brothers to me than other people. It's like the chats with the Muslim guys in the cabs is always it's always super wholesome. But yeah, they're actually breeding, so
it's a
power
religious
to
thing,
them.
right? Like I think Europe in general, they kind of abandoned the idea of God and religion, and they don't have a motive for continuing to, keep going. Like I think
Well, also the European Christian psyche, which it still is, it's still Christian in essence. It needed, like, the reason that Christianity took off, in my opinion, is we needed some kind of projection for our guilt, because we were also like a conquering people that went places and did some nasty stuff, as people do. And being able to like project that onto like an image of Christ kind of helps us cope and helps us to live in a healthy way psychologically. And I think that like the search for truth, which is also kind of baked into Christianity, searching for truth, kind of like self-cannibalized or destroyed the essence of this like cultural operating system.
it's the
And then
Ouroboros.
Yeah, but it just like destroyed itself, and now we don't have something healthy to project uh for lack of a better word, our sin onto, right? We don't have that anymore. So we're doing this in this like weird deformed way where like culturally we're just, we a lot of the environmentalists, I feel, absolutely hate humanity. They will call humans cancer. They will, you know, it's unhealthy. Whereas like with the Christian OS, for lack of a better term, we could project that in like a healthy way and still kind of move forward. So
And
that's just some like
what a
thoughts that I'm
look, I'm really enjoying this conversation. Whenever you need to go, let me know and we could start wrapping up.
oh, no worries.
I can go like
Yeah, yeah.
a thousand directions here. I had this
Mhm.
exact same reference in a conversation with my uncle. So my uncle moved to yeah, my dad is from North Africa, Algeria, and they are mostly Muslims there. There are two like main groups. Ethnically, there's the Berbers and the Arabs, so the way that they practice the religion kind of differs. But the Muslims are like a warrior class. The
Yeah.
way they think is not based off of guilt and shame, it's based off of pride.
Hmm.
So it's like instead of thinking like when they conquer something, instead of feeling bad that they killed a bunch of people, they actually feel like the way they process that is through pride, right? Like
And
we
might is right.
might
Yeah.
is right. Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
So the way you've mentioned it and this operating system idea is great because we were having a debate about this, and I really relate to the Christian theology and the ideas that they live by compared to Muslim theology, which is the root of my uncle and my
Hmm.
father. And I mentioned it's like an operating, it's like Python, like yeah, because the way
Yeah,
Muslims
yeah, yeah,
frame it is
definitely.
Islam is Python version 4, and the way like Christianity is like Python version 3. Some people just want to stay on version 3. They don't want to go to, they don't want to jump to the next piece. Um, I think that.
I'm curious
Go ahead.
on your sorry to cut you off. Your opinion on this is like I think I have the idea. I don't know. I don't fully understand Islam or Christianity for that matter, but Islam is more foreign to me. But I feel that because the West, which was mainly Christian at the time, got kind of disenchanted with Christianity, I feel like Muslims kind of saw what that does to the Western mind, and that kind of reinforced the strength in Islam.
Mm.
That's kind of my feeling. I don't know if that's true,
It's
but
true.
I
It's
kind of
true.
feel like that could be the case. Because if I was a Muslim and I saw Western people, I would probably be reinforced in my belief.
I think the main difference that like what makes it really difficult to take so when you take like a Christian person, you can very quickly convince them that Christianity is just a cultural artistic expression as opposed to the reality of the universe. You cannot do that with a Muslim that is like born and raised in those countries, like maybe 1% of them. But the rest, because it's not about logic, it's not about finding the truth, it's not about like reality. It is beyond. So for them, it's about strength and power and might and not being wrong, right? So if when they look at the West, what they see is that the West traded technological advancement. So that's what they wanted for cultural homogeny and strength. So they sacrificed their culture for technical advancements. And the Islamic world did the opposite. So in the 1300s, Muslims were like on a spree of, making tech, doing things like that. I think the camera was invented by Muslims. The, algebra in
Also,
general,
the numerical
the
system, right?
numerical
Yeah.
system that we use in the West, yes.
Hmm.
They were writers. So Ibn Khaldun is probably one of the best people that documented the Roman Empire. They were really on this like scientific journey to say. And then in the 1300s, there was a ruler in Iran who his decision is that if God exists and Muhammad is the prophet of God, then science is a waste of time. Like, yeah, you could live a better life, but it doesn't matter, right? Because we're not living for here, we're living for what's coming after. So this is the predominant mental um, this is the predominant mindset that Muslim people have, which makes them, in terms of like reproduction and survival, I think that they have a much better chance at surviving, what's coming in the world. In terms of like advancing technically, I feel like there's very few people there that are interested enough in becoming these type scholarly figures, and they typically move to the West. They bring their ideas with them. I'm not talking about like the immigrant type, so those have different problems. I'm talking about like, for example, my uncle. Not that any is better or worse, but my uncle moved to France through an invitation, not through his own will. He was a software engineer, worked for big tech. I have another one who moved to Canada to work for a pharmaceutical company. And these people are like the scientist types, and they're typically reserved. I know I'm going on a lot of different tangents here, but I think it's important to uh, seeing how Europe is interacting with the Islamic world is kind of strange that they have this like feeling like you said of guilt, and they want to bring in these immigrants, and they have very little checks and balances in terms of how they're bringing them in. And Americans have this idea of a great replacement, right? Like we're getting replaced slowly, and Europeans, I think, have the same ideas. Like we're getting replaced slowly, and I think it's like not necessarily the immigrants' fault. It's the policy that Europeans are
Yeah,
taking.
absolutely.
There's no like,
Yeah.
at what point are you culturally assimilating these people? It's not even about religion, it's just cultural assimilation. If you're just bringing them in and giving
Mm.
them stuff, at what point are you
Yeah.
assimilating them? How do they understand why Dutch people think the way they like? They're Muslims don't
Well,
understand
our
that.
traditions are being changed, right? They're seen as offensive, and like probably they do seem quite backwards to some people. Again, me being half Dutch, I don't really feel strongly about them, but we have this tradition of like having people that are painted, black, and they will give gifts and stuff like this. And the story goes is that they were saved by this saint, who is kind of like Santa. It's kind of like the Dutch interpretation, but they were taken from like Spain, or like from the Dutch perspective, like somewhere down there, right? And they come to Holland and they bring gifts, and this is now seen as offensive and bad. And I remember when I came to Holland as a around 10 years old, and I had this teacher who was also dark, and I asked her like, what do you think of this? Like, isn't this offensive because na na na? And then she told me, like, yeah, look, like children don't see this. They see these people giving gifts, and it's a tradition. And that kind of stuck in my mind is like, yeah, why would it be offensive, right? Like you're doing good, you're giving gifts, you're spreading happiness, right? And in a sense, it was almost like colorblind. Like I don't know if you know the South Park episode. I didn't actually watch that episode, but like I know that there was like this flag, and they had like three people, and one of them was black, and the black one was hanging, and that was just coincidence because they like didn't even think about the color, right? It was just random. So here it kind of feels like, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but it just feels like our own traditions are being eroded away by like the tolerance is going so far that we're intolerant towards ourselves. And I guess what I'm afraid of is like a radical backlash, where I think that at some point it will be too far, and then people will get really angry. And now as well in like Dutch politics, this party called the PVV, the PVV. I don't know how to say that in English, honestly. But they won a majority vote, but they're not in the parliament, right? Because you need to form like some kind of coalition bullshit, all this stuff, right? Um, but they're like the people voted for this stuff, and it's not here, right? So to me, that will just build up more resentment, and then the next time around, people will vote even more radically. So instead of like letting the pressure just like release a little bit in a healthy way, we're denying it and letting it build up even more, and that will like eventually pop into some nasty things, I think. But yeah, that's a little rant, sorry.
No, it's good that you mention a lot of this stuff. So the last episode I had that's live is about the Israel-Palestine conflict and how that's being perceived in the West and what people think of it, what it is. The what I'm really interested in isn't necessarily who is doing wrong where, and who's the victim, who's the perpetrator. I just don't see things like that. This is a small example. So, and have you ever heard of Saint Augustine?
Yeah, rings bell.
So
I think he wrote a lot of shit that no one actually read, right?
well, he was very influential in the development of Western Christianity in like
Mm.
354, and he's from Algeria. So this is an Algerian Berber man.
But I think there's this meme that like no, that it's his work is so massive that no one that said they read it actually read it, right? This is something I
Well,
heard.
well, that's the thing with all of these people, right? Like, if you read their words, like it's mostly nonsense. Like, it's just gibberish.
Yeah, yeah,
But like it's a play. I think of it
yeah.
as a
Hmm.
play, right? That you're trying to captivate people's imagination to form unities and form, ideas and to control populations in a way to make them do things. But it's all bullshit.
Yeah,
Like that's the idea of, looking for the truth. If you poke at any religion or even any mindset, it's all nonsense. Even this idea of like, oh, you got to search. Why search for the truth? What do you know? You're a monkey. Your brain can only perceive five
yeah,
senses.
yeah,
Like
yeah. Yeah.
it's very
Good
limiting.
luck,
It's a
definitely.
tough, yeah, it's a tough thing. But throughout history, we see this like shift from whatever place that a culture begins in, they start moving and propagating to other areas, and then they end up somewhere, and then it slowly dies there. I think we were talking about memes earlier and how that like how 4chan is the centerpiece of like the creation of memes, and this area, Israel Palestine, is like the central area of the spread of religious culture. So like they start there and then they go to the west to die, or to the Far East. It's true. It's true. You could see that. Like it's even Muslims. Like we say, okay, they have this like warrior mindset. They still have a lot of issues like within themselves. Like there's still horrible things that are happening that they're doing. Every mindset is super weak.
Has its flaws,
And
definitely.
all of them have their flaws, and all of them can be picked apart.
Yeah.
This is a a difficult conversation. I feel like I'm grasping at straws at this point.
Yeah, that's right.
And all right, well, how about this? We've been here for an hour. I'd love to keep this going for longer, but I have work responsibilities. I really like doing podcasting. I enjoy it a lot. I like talking to people and understanding how they think.
That's cool.
Thank you for being here.
Definitely appreciate it.
Is there anything that you want to like leave on?
Um, yeah, I'd like pump my bags on Tanchain, I guess. I don't know.
Buy
Joking, joking.
Leica. Where can people buy
No, don't
Leica?
pump my shitcoin. No, it's good fun. It's good fun. I think not taking things too seriously is kind of key. Where like currently with all this stuff, everything seems super serious, like with all the conflict in the world and just kind of like putting on these horse blinders and just, you know, focusing on what I think is important has been much more fulfilling than trying to drive myself crazy.
Are you
Younger me
familiar?
had a tendency. Hmm?
Are you familiar with Carl Jung and the his work on archetypes, like the archetypes that people play?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
One thing that really comes to mind when we talk is in the past the Joker was somebody that sat with the evil king and was like a nice guy that cheered up the place
yeah,
and was being bullied a lot by power.
yeah,
He's like the common man, and now the Joker is like this evil guy that's blowing shit up and torturing people, and he needs to be defeated by the superhero of our story. Is a very interesting cultural shift to see, like how we perceive
yeah,
funny stuff, not serious stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Perhaps that's the place of Miladies is to be this like little comic relief, and as the jester, sometimes say something silly, but sometimes something true.
You were gonna say something about when you were younger, and I cut you off.
Oh, no worries. No, I was just thinking like I wish I would have like, focused more on myself and less outwards because I feel like especially with the internet now and all this stuff going on, a lot of things are trying to drive you crazy and pull away at your attention instead of like your actual life. So I always tell myself if something like doesn't directly impact my day to day, it's not important, right? If it doesn't change what you're doing that day, then just you could have not consumed that information and been happier, especially for news and especially with so much like negative news. So just like zooming out and like reading more books and like I've been spending a lot of time like reading Jung and scripture, and it's been more fulfilling to my mind.
I feel like the quintessential Western book is Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky.
Mm.
if you ever get a
Yeah.
chance or if you have read that. I think that's such a important book, and I highly recommend it to anybody here. I think, talking to you and seeing what you've been doing online, I feel like you are a very good person to act as a aggregator for information, like that filtration point for good info, for good culture and good community stuff. And I hope to see that grow. I know you have like these Telegram groups and just seeing how many things that you're exposed to. A lot of people don't give the time to understand all this stuff. So just an observation.
Yeah, nice. I'm flattered.
Thank you, Remy. I'll see you hopefully in
It's a
another
pleasure.
few months.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Thank you, man.
Great. See you. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks.